Since the year 2021, he has been a space diplomacy consultant at the Research and Information System for Developing Countries, that is RIS, which is an autonomous body of the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. He was a committee member of the International Cooperation Review of the Ministry of Science and Technology and the Ministry of Earth Sciences. He has also written one book, India in the Second Space Age of Interplanetary Connectivity. He sits on the advisory board of the Satcom Industry Association India and is also a member of the Niti Aayog Committee on Space Economy, a contributor to the Center of International Governance Innovation, Canada. He regularly speaks at public fora and teaches at various domestic and international institutions. Today, he is going to speak on the topic that is Swadeshi innovations in challenging Amrit Kaal. Chaitanya Ji, over to you from here.
Ajinkya Ji, firstly, I must congratulate Janyo Technologies for completing 99 Saturday Talks. It's a major achievement for anybody who is in academia or who works in think tanks. We do realize that it is extremely difficult to sustain a talk series, a lecture series for this long without any interruptions and in such a relentless manner. You've achieved something that is very difficult for even the greatest of think tanks to achieve. So kudos to you all. Much congratulations. And I'm sure that the 100th episode after this, Dr. Satish Reddy, will be also a major milestone in more than one ways for JanyuTech.
Yes.
So today I'm here with you to discuss the challenges that are emerging in the Amrit Kaal, the period between 2022 to 2047, and why is it so important to have Swadeshi innovation. So I'll be talking more about the need for Swadeshi in this era, especially when this particular word has sort of gotten onto the back burner. We use the terms these days, Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India, but the word Swadeshi has somehow, it's no more in our common parlance. We don't use it very often as we used to some time back. Although Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India is somewhat synonymous, but it is very important that we start using the word Swadeshi hereafter because there are tremendous challenges ahead. Challenges for our national security, challenges for our comprehensive security, including our environmental security. And it's very important that we start innovating entirely by ourselves because India is now, or Bharat is now riding a lion. We have now been given the pole position, or we have reached the pole position all by ourselves, thanks to the wonderful 9 to 10 years of strong national leadership at the center, a government that has full majority. It has been able to take some really strategic decisions, serious decisions, and as the Prime Minister says, that he has been able to also give to the people a really strong and bitter medicine at times. So all this has been possible because of strong leadership at the center and a full majority at the center. Now, given that fact, why is it now important to go Swadeshi? Firstly, what you see, the things that have happened in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, the things that have happened more recently in Israel, they are a telltale sign that the geopolitics of the world is in a flux. Things are not as stable as they were 15, 20 years ago. Terrorism is taking pan-global dimension. Terrorism, which was for a very long time confined to West Asia, and it used to seldom make these presence felt through some spectacular events, be it 26/11 in our case, or be it 9/11 in the case of US, be it London bombings or Madrid bombings. The nature of terrorism has changed. And in the next 25 years or so, terrorism will emerge in an era when global order is in a flux. United Nations is looking towards obsolescence. There are more and more evidences. There are more and more instances now where the UN is coming across as a toothless body, a body that is unable to fulfill the aspirations of the world order that had set the United Nations. So we are in a phase where League of Nations was in the 1930s. And this is something very serious because if the United Nations is ineffective, if it happens to be and remain ineffective increasingly in the coming years, you will see that global regulations on technology, global regulations on global commons, global regulations on warfare, especially weapon systems, they'll break down. So why is the need for Swadeshi innovation? Firstly, being the third largest economy, we are soon to become that by 2027, and 2024 is right around the corner, and it wouldn't take much time to reach 2027 when we'll find ourselves as the third largest economy on the planet. It could also be the case that technologies that were kind of available to us as a country on the lower power pedestal, things will get difficult hereafter unless and until we mend our ways. Mend as in we will have to become assertive as a country. Our companies who are going out, who are finding business opportunities elsewhere, they'll have to be aggressive as the Americans or the Europeans have been in the past 100 to 100 years, as aggressive as the Chinese have been in the past 30 years, so that we sort of assert our weight when it comes to operating in spheres that we are right now not accustomed to operating in. We are able to now build technologies that are world class, but we are still unable to convert those technologies from a TRL level, a technology readiness level, to a commercial readiness level. So it was not supposed to be told by JPL that we were not seeking validation. Neither was ISRO seeking any validation. But it is not JPL's task to come and tell us that your technology is commercially fantastic. Why don't you sell it to us? We should be at the forefront. We should be proactive with selling whatever technology that ISRO generates or DRDO generates. And there should be a very robust pipeline for commercialization of any avant-garde technology. That pipeline, even today, is missing. And that is one of the biggest challenge, that irrespective of the great efforts put into developing these kind of technologies, we are unable to reap benefits out of it. Although Chairman Somnath mentioned about validation from JPL, one thing that has been constantly concerning me in person, at least, and I have written this in one of my recent op-eds on my platform called as interstellar.news. This is the platform that I run. It's a news platform entirely dedicated to the space sector. So in my recent op-ed, I wrote that we are unable to commercialize, and we have learned nothing from our partners, especially France, especially Europe, with whom our space sector has been collaborating for ages. I'll give you one example. Rajesh ji mentioned about the Rosetta mission. I was working on payload called as cometary sampling and composition experiment. And unfortunately, this particular instrument, since the stakeholders who built this were distributed in 3 countries, Germany, France, and Austria, we were unable to commercialize it readily because components that made this particular payload, it was a gas chromatography mass spectrometer. The components that made this payload had no value or had less value when it comes to being standalone. And the countries, the agencies and the institutions that built them were unable to find a solution of how to commercialize it. But there was another instrument. The name of that instrument was Ptolemy, the great mathematician, named after him. And this particular instrument was entirely built by Open University, which is in Milton Keynes in the UK. So Open University, since it owned the entire IP of that particular instrument, it was an isotope ratio mass spectrometer. The instrument was able to distinguish between deuterium and hydrogen. It was able to distinguish between heavy oxygen and light oxygen, so on and so forth, all the lighter elements and their isotopes. So once the mission was accomplished, once this particular isotope ratio mass spectrometer did its job on the comet, it delivered some fantastic scientific discoveries. And thereafter, Open University decided to spin it off and sell it in the market. The first buyer for that particular instrument was the biggest UK defense contractor, BAE Systems. Now, what did BAE Systems do? BAE Systems purchased the technology. It also sort of employed the scientists who were working on Ptolemy, and they modified it in a way that the modified version of the mass spectrometer is now fitted on 2 different classes of SSBNs, nuclear powered submarines, so, which the BAE system has been building. So the first SSBN class is the Astute class, and the second one is currently under construction and design. It's called the Dreadnought class of submarines. Both are nuclear powered, and this particular mass spectrometer, it plays the role of identifying whether there are any leakages from the nuclear reactor of the submarine into the components, into the compartments where the crew is staying. So they don't want the crew to get irradiated by any wanton radiation leaks coming from the reactor, the miniaturized reactor. Why can't we do this? Why are we not doing this? It's been nearly 15 years since Chandrayaan 1. None of our technology has been commercialized. We thereafter had the Mars Orbiter mission. 10 years since Mars Orbiter mission. We haven't commercialized it. And this slowness, this lethargy in commercializing, and this completely abject disregard for time is something that is going to haunt us in the next few years, especially during the Amrit Kaal. And the reason being that we have slowly and steadily reached the level of being the third largest economy, but our ecosystem is yet to fathom the needs of the third largest economy. Our ecosystem is still reminiscent and is still nostalgic about the days when we were in the top 20 economies of the world. That's not the case anymore. Things are fast changing, and we'll have to start behaving accordingly. So exercises like IDEX, exercises like Mission Defense Space, ISRO is going to soon have its own set of 100 startup challenges. Chairman Somnath has already made it public. The official announcement should come anytime in 2024, when 100 space challenges will be put out, and the money will be routed mostly through InSpace, the new agency that has been created, Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Program. So we'll have to be mindful about this particular aspect of slow commercialization of our technologies. Number two is, what sort of economic footprint do we have when it comes to exports of technologies built in India in the global north and global south? So at present, the global north is not a lucrative market for us because it is highly competitive. It is already saturated with manufacturers that have straight away 20 to 30 years advantage over our companies, and it will take us some time to penetrate into the global north markets. But what are we doing to penetrate into global south? This is something that we have to be really careful about. And why do I say that? Given the geopolitical flux, the global south will also sort of rise over the colonial powers that have been ruling them directly or indirectly, and this will lead towards they seeking more autonomy when it comes to governance, autonomy when it comes to their security. Now, for instance, just before a few weeks before the Israel conflict began, there were news about military coups happening in West Africa, especially in countries like Niger, Mali, Sierra Leone, so on and so forth, and Nigeria. Nigeria has been in a geopolitical mess for a very long time, for the past 10 years or so. And these are telltale signs that none of these countries who have been under the so-called security umbrella of France, they don't want France to be their ruler, quasi-ruler anymore. And these countries are now seeking assistance so that they can stand up on their feet. Their security becomes autonomous. They can't straight away become autonomous, but they will explore options beyond Europe, options beyond North America. And in such instances, it is India which comes to the fore as one of the prominent solutions provider when it comes to comprehensive security needs of these African countries. So Papua New Guinea wants a third player in, which is India in this case, and they want us to be their solutions provider. The Chinese are wanting to set up listening posts in Papua New Guinea. They want to set up optic fiber cables around the islands of Papua New Guinea, especially via Solomon Islands. And this is something that Australia has been challenging. Now, in such a situation, Papua New Guinea, to counter any Chinese oversaturation of technology or any Australian oversaturation of technology, they need to have some hands-on expertise, which none of these two countries will provide them. Here again, India's role becomes prominent. Just 2 years ago, during the thick of the pandemic, Dubai hosted World Expo 2020. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, there was not enough representation from India, although India had a very big booth there, a very big exposition stand there. And there was a heavy African presence at the Dubai Expo. And I have been privy to some requests that came from Africa. One of the requests was that African agricultural companies are looking for geospatial solutions so that their standing crop is protected. Their standing crop is protected from microbial pests as well as large pests, especially animals who come and destroy the farmlands. So they want geospatial technologies. They want marking of their properties, their farmlands, geotagging of their farmlands, and making sure that there are electric fencing that will avoid animals to come and enter the farms and destroy the farms. This is something they have been seeking from Indian entities. Unfortunately, there was not enough private sector representation because of the pandemic, as I said, and the only Indian entity that was around was CDAC. Some of these solutions were being requisitioned to CDAC. So I don't know whether CDAC has been able to fulfill these requisitions or redirect these requisitions to Indian companies. But again, unless and until we are able to market ourselves, some of these technologies we might be using here in Maharashtra or in Karnataka or in Andhra, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, wherever, even up north in Punjab or Himachal. But we need to market them. There are many takers for it. What some of the spectacular missions like Chandrayaan have done is they have sort of established that India is able to build something that is cost effective at very low price points. Whatever India builds is highly rugged when it when compared to European technologies, which are more they're sophisticated, but they're still sensitive. They can't be ruggedized much. It becomes very important that our Swadeshi tech gets exported. Lastly, I'll touch base upon supply chains. It becomes very important that our companies, they should go out through industry bodies every year or every quarter to countries in South America and Africa, especially Africa, because at least for the defense sector, Indian government has been giving out a $1 billion line of credit for defense companies, for defense exports. Now, this line of credit has been activated through Exim Bank. And unfortunately, despite offering a line of credit, not many of our Indian companies are able to sell their technologies in Africa. Likewise, there would be some line of credit coming in for other regions of the world, given the fact that the global economy seems to be in doldrums. And since Indian economy is going to do well, it will remain a bright spot. Uh, so it becomes our duty to not only offer line of credits, but make sure that Indian private sector players get a global footprint. More recently, during the International Astronautical Congress, many of Indian startups from the space sector as well as MSMEs from the space sector visited Azerbaijan, Baku. And this is something that I have been constantly telling Department of Space, but they unfortunately are not paying heed to it. There was a threat that was sounded off to Department of Space that, look, you are taking some of your brightest startups and MSMEs to a country with whom you are not right now sharing geopolitically favorable relations. Baku is one of the closest allies of Turkey as well as Pakistan. So taking your companies there without giving them enough exposure, without giving them enough briefing, should be avoided completely. And it so happened that one of the Indian space startups, I won't name who it was, so the founder of that startup was detained at Baku airport for 12 hours. That person was not let out despite having all valid documents, despite having a hotel ticket and everything. And it was only to trouble this person. So, what we did eventually was to ring up the right set of people and convince this person to not attend the International Astronautical Congress but to come back to India. The person came back to India. The problem here was that in space, who was supposed to brief these companies before taking them to such a big event, that briefing never happened. If you see, when American delegations come through USIBC or other such business bodies, they come as delegations. They come in packs. They are well secured. They're well cocooned. There is a briefing that is given to them before their departure to India or to any country wherever they visit. And there are proper diplomatic channels that are created. What I'm trying to suggest over here is that whenever you go out, you will have to go out as companies, you will have to go out as startups, but you will have to operate in packs. You will have to operate like a pack of wolves, because only as a pack of wolves you will be able to hunt, you will be able to purchase technologies, at times with sam, at times with dam, or at times with danda and bheda. All these aspects, all these tactics will have to be put to use. The reason being, and especially in Europe right now, European economy is not going to return to normalcy anytime soon. I won't exactly give you how long it will stay this way, but it is not going to return to the golden years that Europe sort of enjoyed after the fall of the Berlin Wall. So between 1991 to 2011-ish, when the Syrian migrants started migrating to Europe, that was the golden period for Europe. When Germany rose up, there was stability in Europe, there was stability in France, Belgium, and everything. Those days are not coming back anytime soon. And the problem is that if European economy goes down, a lot of space sector companies, agri-tech companies, defense sector companies, startups, German MSMEs, which are called as the Mittelstands, French companies, these are going to get acquired left, right, and center. Most of them will get violently acquired either by the Chinese or either by the Americans. Now, we'll have to make sure that a pound of flesh from Europe comes to India. We will have to acquire technology that is of great use to us. We'll have to make sure that we acquire it by all means. Are we ready to acquire these companies and their technologies by all means? Is something to be seen. But we'll have to grow our teeth now. We'll have to grow our nails and claws, because if we don't do it, the Chinese will, and the Chinese will deploy all these European acquisitions against us. So, geopolitically, we are in a flux. Times are demanding us that we become more aggressive when it comes to innovation within India, as well as we should become more aggressive when it comes to acquisitions of technologies that are out there for selling. We have also seen from the Israel crisis that technology is the last resort when a country comes under attack. Irrespective of all the hype around Israeli intelligence, irrespective of all the hype about Israel as a startup nation, as an innovation nation, what led to the attack was complacency, overconfidence, and perhaps loss of sense of vigil, loss of sense of alertness. We can't afford that. We can't afford that at all. So there are lessons to be learned, and we'll also have to make sure that there is a great amount of human intelligence that will be needed if India is to secure itself as the third or the second or the largest economy on this planet. And as our people say, if we have to become Vishwaguru, we'll have to assert ourselves as the Vishwaguru. And for that assertion, we'll need to mend our ways, especially on the points that I have just spoken about. With that, I end my intervention, and I'm now open to have one-on-one interaction with you all.
Is it only about marketability, or aggressive marketing from the government side, or is it only the government helping startups to who are good innovators to go out and market? Is it only that, or is it something else? Is it not the competition which is keeping us down, and we have not yet reached that stage of being known in the world.
This is how Delhi operates, and I'm sure you also have experienced this during your experiences. Delhi or any national capital of the world largely revolves around hype, and help will only come from the government in sectors that are hyped up completely. So what I mean is, wherever there is hype, the government will become forthcoming in helping those sectors and companies that are operating in these sectors. What I'll rather say is, companies, especially business bodies and business associations of certain sectors, they'll have to be proactive as they go out, for interactions as a cohort together. They'll have to make field visits. They'll have to see the state of the art of their sector, how it is operating, what is the health, who's doing well, which of the companies are financially doing well. Because those who are financially doing well will also try to come here and set up their bases here, or acquire some of our companies. Those who are not financially doing well, can we acquire them? Can we get them merged? Can we do a JV with them, and slowly and steadily? So those type of steps will have to be taken through industry bodies. At times, industry bodies will have to do this entirely by themselves. At times, they will be helped proactively by the government. But when it comes to the government's economic diplomacy wing or the tech diplomacy wing does not have enough people. And this is what I have felt in my constant interactions with Ministry of External Affairs for the past 5-6 years now. They do not have enough people. They are very much reliant on market intelligence or human intelligence coming from the industry. So there is no point relying on the government if companies like yours have to be nimble. The government will take away your nimbleness if you keep waiting for them. So maybe your proactiveness should catch the attention of the Indian government, and perhaps they'll be of help thereafter.
No, my observation. I have seen this with my interaction with Niti Aayog. They don't have people of the caliber that is required.
And all those who are sitting within Niti Aayog or Invest India, they have come from the consulting background. They come from one of the big fours, maybe the India offices of the big fours or any overseas offices, and they are only here to save their jobs.
No, if you see in the 60s and 70s, it's called, I think, MEIT or something, Ministry of Internal, it's the Japanese Ministry for Trade.
METI. Yeah.
So they did absolutely outstanding work of marketing Japan. And similarly, China has been doing for ages now, maybe 20-30 years. They just probably copied what Japanese had done. And Made in Japan was made into a big time brand. Made in China has took so long time to become a brand.
Yeah.
But they're still, the small things they're doing well.
Yeah. We'll have to. Hamara problem ye ho raha hai, sir, that we are many of our startups at least, they are wanting to build entire systems. They are not ready to be champions of smaller components or subsystems. So my problem with companies like Skyroot or with companies like Agnikul has been that all is fine, they will succeed eventually, but these companies are setting a bad precedent of building entire systems altogether. Now, this is something that is not lucrative. You need companies that excel in certain components, and they keep building those components year after year. They keep these components advancing, decade after decade, and be champions at those. This is not happening here. हम पूरा सिस्टम बनाने की फिराक में बैठे हैं, और वो गलत बात है. उससे इकोसिस्टम नहीं बनेगा.
No, the ecosystem can also be made by big time platform makers who are so reliable or who have such a good marketability of their own that they make the startups work for them or the component makers work for them, and then probably it follows. There has been some attempt by Sikorsky, etc., who set up something with Tata, something with Mahindra on defense. or you call, I mean, I'm talking about Tata Defense, not Tata Sikorsky, Mahindra Defense or L&T Defense. They did something, but not yet there.
Not yet. Absolutely. I have been rather talking to these big players. I once spoke to Godrej Aerospace, Surendra Vaidyaji, who used to be their executive vice president. I asked him if anything goes wrong with our launch, space launch startups, will you take them under your wings? To which he said yes, but we don't have a strategy as of now. So, as you rightly put, the bigger players will have to give the smaller startups or MSMEs the platform, and that's how hub and spoke model needs to be created.
Yes, Chaitanya ji. Totally agree with you, because the government wants a startup like us to develop a components and system on NCNC basis, which is no cost, no commitment.
No comment.
That is where there is this hurdle, big hurdle in the companies coming into this development area, because unless you are funded by someone or you are the part of a big group, which forms a separate division for six explorative R&D things, it is very difficult to sustain, because decision process also takes its own time in India, country like India, and that kills the startups.
You need business contracts, you need sustenance. People talk very highly about SpaceX, but SpaceX wouldn't have been in today's position had it not had got grants from DoD in its early years, had it not got NASA grants in the early years. So support is needed when it comes to not only R&D support, finance for R&D, but also finance business sustenance. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.